Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your holiday season. Today I've got a VR. I'm going to show you some pickups, and at the end, I've got a couple more questions that Eddie Watt answered during my interview at the radio station, 93.7 The Ticket. So, Adam's Card Closet is chasing 1,000 subs, and I haven't looked recently to see if he's reached that goal. But what he wanted us to do was just simply show some cards, which is what we do on this channel, and shout out one or two or maybe even three channels that are trying to chase down 1,000 subs themselves. So with that, and also I've got a thank you for a mail day that I received. And my first pickup was this guy, 1952 Cliff Mapes. Pretty darn well-centered card, I think, for 1952. Here's the back. And if you haven't heard me say it before, the reason I put this on there is when I slip it into a top loader or a card saver, I can pull it out a lot quicker and easier and not damage the card. But Cliff Mapes, he was born in Sutherland, Nebraska. He played alongside Joe DiMaggio while winning the 1949 and 1950 World Series. He wore both number 3 and number 7 for the Yankees. And that's a great answer to a trivia question. He's the only guy that ever wore number 3 and number 7 for the Yankees. So he was wearing number 3, and partway through the season, they decided that they were going to go ahead and retire number 3 for Babe Ruth because he had been diagnosed with throat cancer. And so he changed to number 13. Then going into the next year, I don't know whether he thought 13 was an unlucky number or what, but he decided he didn't want to wear number 13, so he started wearing number 7. And I think we all know that Mickey Mantle ended up wearing number 7. All right, so my first shout out is to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. He's chasing 1,000 subs, and Dan's a great guy. I got an opportunity to meet him and chat a little bit. He was a roommate of mine at the frat house at the National in Cleveland. And although it says Mr. Mapes is a Detroit Tiger here, he did spend one season with the Tigers. He spent one season with the St. Louis Browns, but he's known for playing for the New York Yankees. And Dan is a New York Yankee fan. So, Dan, I hope you get to 1,000 real soon. Now, for my thank you, check out this card. Justin, 3 Good Nerds down in Texas. Thank you so much for sending this to me. I stared at it for 15 minutes. So 1953 is my go-to year. It's the one that I've collected. It's the one that I've finished in a graded set. And this one is autographed by Roy Sievers. And I just think it's wonderful. Here's the back of that card. That's great. And so, Justin, thank you again. There's his letter. Just a little something from your friends in Texas. Wishing you and your family a very Merry Christmas. Thanks for helping making the YouTube community so fun for everyone. Your friends, Justin, the Nerds. So again, thank you, Justin. This is just absolutely wonderful, and I'll cherish it. So a little bit about Roy Sievers. He was born in St. Louis. He was a 5-time All-Star. He was Rookie of the Year in 1949. In 1957, he led the league in home runs and RBI. He played for the Browns, the Senators, the White Sox, the Phillies. And I think it was 2009, I had an opportunity to go to a Phillies game in Philadelphia with Bobby Shantz, the 1952 MVP. And he told me the 2 people that were the hardest to strike out or just to get out in any fashion was Mickey Mantle and Roy Sievers. And so I've always remembered that. I thought that was a great conversation. But Roy Sievers had 318 home runs after 17 seasons and 1,147 RBI. He had a pretty darn good career. So thanks again, Justin. And since this is an autograph, and I don't know if it came as a TTM or how Justin acquired it, but I thought this would be a great time to shout out Math Bowler, who I've recently connected with. I don't know him real well, but I know he's a TTM guy. And so he's chasing 1,000 subs as well. So I'm rooting for you to get to 1,000 subs soon. All right, next up we have a 1955 Topps Art Fowler. And Art Fowler was a native of South Carolina. He was the brother of Jesse Fowler, who was 24 years older, and that gave them the record for the largest age difference between brothers who played Major League Baseball. He was a reliever who owned a 4.03 ERA and had 54 wins. He played for the Reds, the Dodgers, and the Angels. He was a longtime coach for Billy Martin. So here's the back of that card. It's card number 3. I'm trying to complete the 1955 and 1956 top set in graded fashion, and this is one of those cards I'm going to send in. I've just had a hard time finding this card. in a graded fashion that I thought was appealing. So I purchased this, and we'll see. I kind of think it's going to be a 4 or a 5 if I had to guess. So we're going to set him in this way. I know it's a horizontal card, but... And then the last pickup I had was this 1960 Veda Pinson. Shout out to the Cincinnati Kid. He and I are going to have a little showcase show off here, or whatever you want to call it. We're both trying to do runs of Veda Pinson in a graded fashion. So I'll be sending this one in. I did know that it was in really great shape, but just right at the top here and the edge in the middle kind of has a little indentation, and you can see that if you look close enough. So I don't know what will happen with that as a grade. Here's the back of that card. But Veda Pinson was born in Memphis, Tennessee. 54.2 WAR, 286 lifetime batting average, 2,757 hits, 1,170 RBI, 256 home runs, 305 stolen bases. He had a heck of a career. I often say on this channel that he ought to be in the Hall of Fame. He went to high school in Oakland, California. And in that high school at the same time was a guy named Bill Russell, who played a little basketball. But even more amazing was a couple other guys that were in his high school that played in the outfield with him on the high school baseball team. A guy named Kurt Flood and Hall of Famer Frank Robinson. But Veda Pinson, 4-time All-Star, he won the Gold Glove in 1961, and he's in the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. So we'll put him over here. And my last shout out is for Shane over at Shoebox Legends. Shane, I know, is closing in on 1,000. So Shane, I'm hoping the best for you as well in the near future to reach that 1,000 subs. If you haven't checked out Shane's channel, please head over there. He collects the Topps buybacks, which is very interesting. Okay, so once again, congratulations to Adam's Card Closet, who's chasing 1,000 subs. He's a great guy. I really appreciate his support, and thank you for doing this VR. Okay, so the last thing I got is just a couple of questions that Mr. Eddie Watt of the Baltimore Orioles answered for me on 93.7 The Ticket. So keep growing your collection, card farmers, and here's that clip.
Former MLB pitcher Eddie Watt in here, as well as Drew Cromwell. Don't go anywhere. We'll keep things rolling here on A Ticket Sunday. Eddie, we're talking about having some pride and just the mental state you need to have to be great, to be elite at anything in life. You need a mental edge. So Eddie, I'll ask you, you kind of mentioned the story already, a moment where things just weren't going your way and you having to battle through it. You got any great memories or stories of that for you?
Yeah, my first wedding. That and my first job teaching school. I don't know which lasted the longest. I think it really didn't make any difference. Neither one was very enjoyable. But no, not really. I not that everything has always been rosy for me. As a kid, we were very, very poor. We were didn't have very much, if we had anything at all. I realized there wasn't any Christmas when Santa Claus didn't come for like 2 or 3 straight years. And so we were all used to it. The family, I was the youngest of 4 kids. You get used to things and accept them for what they're worth and then make the most of it. And I don't think I've ever gotten down on my own ability. I I always try not to be overly cocky, overly sure of myself, but I was sure of myself and my abilities, and tried to conduct myself in a manner that I wouldn't offend anybody, and just enjoy life.
Where do you attribute that mental fortitude of just always staying humble and not thinking, too much or too little of yourself?
I honestly don't know. I have never. A lot of people you see have a lot of tricks. The sociology, psychology, uh, cybernetics, or whatever all that kind of stuff is. I don't think so. I think everything. I've tried to make everything as simple as possible. I do in my life today, as I did when I played. I kind of knew my limits, and I kind of know my limits now. Things are much easier now than they were then, but I try to keep everything as simple as possible and try to meet everything head on, and enjoy it, enjoy life, even some of the drawbacks. I've grown to appreciate over the years. We were playing Cincinnati. We are up 3-0 going into the fourth game. Everybody wanted a big sweep. Half the town of Baltimore was there, and all carrying brooms. I came into the ball game in about the 7th or 8th inning, I think, and Lee May. I hadn't pitched in a couple of weeks, which is not an excuse; it's a fact.
Now, this is the 1970 World Series.
1970
right?
World Series.
Right.
Lee May came into the ball game, and the first pitch I threw him was a sinker, but everybody said, well, I was too strong or something. I threw a sinker, didn't sink, and he hit it about 450 feet up into the left field seats. Consequently, we ended up losing that game, won the World Series the next day, and I was Baltimore's least favorite person for a year or two, and I might still be today, except I'm 1,200 miles from it. But I accept it. And maybe I learned something from it. Maybe I learned not to throw Lee May a sinker. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always that part, right? You can learn from all those things. 402-464-5685. If you guys want to join in here before I throw it back over to Drew, definitely do so. And again, you can comment on any of the streams.
Well, let me set the stage for this next question for you, all right? It's 1977. You're playing for the Padres minor league affiliate, the Hawaii Islanders. And I understand that your team was in the middle of a losing streak. During the game, you picked up a rosin bag and
threw it. we were leading. We were leading the southern half of the Pacific Coast League at the time, and in that league, and when you're in Hawaii, you go on road trips that don't consist of 2 and 3 games. We'd go on a 15-day road trip, and we were about 5 or 6 games in front. We ended up losing 4 out of 5 here and 4 out of 5 there, and before you know it, we're tied for first and second place after losing a big lead. Well, Dick Phillips, the manager, was I think he was 2 years older than I was, and he was going berserk. So we were the last day in Spokane. We were down 17-1. Dick called down to the bullpen. He says, Eddie, get in here. He says, coach third base. I'm sick and tired of doing this. And I said, okay. I went in and coached third base. And then as I walked off toward the dugout, he says, go out and pitch the 7th inning. He said, we've been here long enough. And he says, hell, I can't stay any longer. This is driving me nuts. We got to catch a plane to Hawaii. And I said, okay. So I went out to pitch and threw the ball around the infield and got ready. Catcher threw me the ball. I caught it. And I dropped it. And I dropped it right beside the rosin bag. And it was in one of the big rosin bags. And I reached down and picked up the rosin bag, put it in my glove, put the ball in my glove, looked down, got signs from the catcher. And Jimmy Gardner was the hitter. and I wound up, threw the ball to home plate, and it looked like a big water balloon going toward home plate. And Rick Sweet, the catcher, made the play completely. The ball hit him in the glove, and the rosin just poofed everywhere. You've seen Michael Jordan used to do it before games. LeBron James does it before games, of making this big cloud. Well, that's what that did. And the umpire behind the plate, he says, "Why, strike?" He says, "What the hell was that?" And Rick just sat there completely dead-faced, no nothing. Turn around, threw the ball, threw the rosin bag back to me, perfect. Caught it in the glove, dropped it, picked up the ball, and I just sat there and I posed. And for about 5 seconds, it was the quietest any place you've ever been in your life. And then everybody just realized what happens, and everybody roared and laughed and laughed and laughed. And I looked over in the dugout, and Dick Phillips was rolling around on the floor of the dugout. And then I got 3 guys out in a row. And like I said, I never tricked anybody, but we were getting beat 17-1. And I got the first guy out and the second guy out. Well, the best hitter in the league was hitting third. He come up, and I threw him 6 pitches. I threw 3 breaking balls, 3 fastballs, but each breaking ball was different. Each fastball was different. I threw him out of a different arm angle. I threw him out of a different windup. And again, everybody just started laughing. It was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. Well, we get back to Hawaii. We end up winning 8 out of 10 in Hawaii, win the Coast League, and go play for the Coast League Championship. And Dick Phillips always credited me for winning the pennant for the Hawaii club, because most of them were young kids. There were 2 or 3 of us old guys, and then a bunch of young kids who were starting to get a little nervous. And now they were relaxed again, and we ended up winning the Coast League. And that's the end of my career as a player, was I guess in Spokane on the last pitch I threw.
Well, I've heard of a fastball and a curveball. I've never heard of a rosin ball.
Yeah, but it made all the news and everything else. It was on the radio back home. As soon as the game was over with, and went back to the hotel, and I had a phone call waiting for me, and it was from my wife, who was in Hawaii at the time. And she said, "Did you really do that, or did they just make that up?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it was me. I did it." She said, "You're going to get fined, and you're going to get everything else." And nothing happened at all.
Did the commissioner or the umpire or anybody say anything to you?
Nobody said. The only person that said anything was John Felsky, the third base coach, whom I knew since 1963 or 4 in the Northern League. And then we worked together with the Phillies for a year or 2. And John just looked at me, and he was laughing as hard as he could. And then he looked at me and he says, "Eddie, you're the only guy in the league that can get away with this." Of course, I was the oldest guy in the league, and kind of had free reign to goof off and do what I wanted, I guess.